ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and then one time a month, it's my favorite time of the month, I get to talk to Gerald Celente from TrendsJournal. Buongiorno, my friend.
Buongiorno. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
It's an interesting time we find ourselves in, Gerald. You've got an Occupy Peace, you got a rally coming up on May 2nd, and I'm glad you chose May 2nd instead of May 1st. May Day, Commie Day. I was sitting here, and a friend had sent me some information. I was talking about how China and Chiang Kai-shek was a good friend of the United States, how the State Department undermined Chiang Kai-shek, basically toppled him from power and instilled the communist in power in China. It's a funny thing about history, Gerald. I mean, it's not hidden. You have to ferret and dig it out, but it's still there. And I'll tell you what, I am amazed as I sit back and I'm hearing the horror stories of what Obama's going to do. And they're starting to use the term lame duck for Obama. Oh no. He's got the cell phone in one hand and a pen and his executive orders. What do you see coming out of this Oval Office between now and his tenure's end?
Well, a continuing raping of the Constitution. I mean, he just came out. I mean, we're at war against Syria. Could you imagine if Syrian airplanes were dropping bombs over the United States? And he didn't ask Congress, and Congress doesn't care. And look at the election. And this is the country that's always promoting that it's exporting freedom and democracy. And that piece that you sent me, Woodrow Wilson, the world is going to make we're going to make the world safe at democracy. Mm-hmm. I had it many years ago, maybe about 20 years ago. I had a friend of mine, who's passed on, of course. He was about 92 at the time. And he said he remembers, he grew up, in the Midwest. He remembers going, young guys going off to fight to war, and they're all riled up. And he said to the guy, "What are you going to fight for?" He said, "To save the world, make the world safe for the Democrats." But the young guy meant it. He bought the line, making the world safe for democracy. Mm-hmm. And so what we have here is when we look at the election, we just had a midterm election. I mean, it's a freak show. It's right in front of everybody, and it doesn't make the news. 74% of the people decided to stay home rather than vote for a lesser of two freaks. They stayed home. And this is historic. The last time it was this low was 1942, but that really doesn't count because the world, we went to war. It wasn't about, the people were, let's keep what we have, we're not going to change it. We got to be solid here. So that wasn't a rebellion as this one was. So when you ask me about Obama, it's Obama, McCain, Graham, Pelosi, Reid, McConnell, Greenberg, Heisberg. What's the difference? So what I see it as, Obama is going to bring us into more war, and the war hawks are going to be screaming for it. And Obama's going to play the good guy, like, well, I really don't want to do this, but we got to save them Christians on the mountain and them Yazidis. Everybody knows what a Yazidi was and is. You got 7 of them down your block and 5 in your driveway. But we're going to do a humanitarian mission to save the Yazidis. No, we're not going back into Iraq. I promise you.
Yeah.
And now, just when he left the G20 meeting in Brisbane, Australia, he just announced that, well, we don't know if we're not going to have troops on the ground back in Iraq. So he's the perfect con man. He's the commander-in-chief. That's what I see. And on with this immigration issue, we have a solution for it. As you mentioned, we're holding Occupy Peace rally in Colonial Kingston on May 2nd. And, John, this is going to be different than any other rally that anyone's ever attended in the sense that we're going to have takeaways. These are action plans to take so we don't go to war anymore. This isn't going to be about yelling and screaming. I'd rather fight for peace than die for war. And that's what this is going to be about. This is going to be, no, this is the way we want it. And one of the things is, in the Colonial Kingston, in honoring thy founding fathers, no foreign entanglements, beginning with George Washington, Franklin, Jefferson, the list goes on. So the other aspect of it is bring home the troops and seal the borders. Nobody comes in. No one comes in. We cannot take care of our own. We don't need new ones. And when you go back to the Great Depression, that's exactly what they did. No more. They sent out the illegals, sealed the borders until we could take care of our own. And now they're bringing them in to undercut the labor market. Period, paragraph. You look at and again, I've been writing about this in my books, Trend Tracking 1988, Trends 2000, 1996, and in the Trends Journals beginning in 1991. Study after study shows who's behind this, and it's they're no longer barely in business, the National Association of Manufacturers, so they could bring in cheap labor, and the silicon guys, so with these H-1B visas, so they could bring in cheap labor. So that's who's behind it. So that's to us. So Obama's going to push this through. The Republicans are going to put up a half-witted fight, and they'll push it through, just like they do everything else.
Well, after all, they got a new Speaker of the House. They're bouncing Bonnier and bringing in Mitch McConnell. That'll make a real difference, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. 20 years ago, Gerald, I started to see stories that were just being salted here and there. And one of the stories that I read in a newspaper, just a little 2-paragraph story, bemoaning the fact that some people in Africa would have to labor a day, day and a half, maybe 2 days, just to have enough money to buy a McDonald's Big Mac. And I read that, and the article was pretty much complaining about the standard of living, how good we have it, and how bad these people have it. And I'm looking at this, and I'm going, okay, so we were supposed to be made to feel guilty because we built the highest standard of living? And we're not just talking, Gerald, material stuff. When we're talking about standard of livings, we're talking about an infrastructure. We're talking about disease doesn't run rampant because, well, we have hygiene. We have hygiene because we've identified how people get sick. We have clean water. We have wastewater treatment plants. We have medical research and some good drugs out there. A lot of the drugs aren't good. But we developed much, much more than just a standard of living. And the whole intent of this operation that you and I are discussing right now was to bring us down rather than elevate the world to a closer benchmark to our standard. No, we just lowered the level for the United States, and one of those ways to do it is to balkanize this country and to bring in that cheap labor. There is so many diseases, Gerald, that have been brought into this country. In this country, because we had the system that we had, we eradicated a lot of diseases that throughout the years have killed many millions of people. We had a standard, but we don't anymore.
Well, we don't have a standard. Our standard, we have a standard. It's bottom line. That's the standard. That's the business standard. Bottom line. Make it cheap and make it low quality, and get the best profit that you can have. It's a global takeover, and it's just nothing more than the mentality when they say that the fish rots from the head down. So whether it's the fish at the head of the war criminals, that the psychopaths, or the people running Wall Street. Hey, look at the data. It's all it's in the financial news today. You're looking at merger and acquisition activity now. It's back to 2007 levels. $3 trillion worth of M&A activity. Why? Well, very simply, record low interest rates. You borrow money for nothing. And what are they doing? They're buying back their own stocks, and they're buying up other companies. Meanwhile, we the people, we have no place to put our money. One time there used to be a thing called savings rate, and there's no more savings to put in the bank anymore because they give you nothing for it. So what I'm saying is everything is based on bottom line, because what these hedge funds, private equity groups, and venture capitalists or vulture capitalists do is they buy companies up and they rape them.
Okay, hold that thought. We got a break. We'll be back in 3.
Recent events have shown just how vulnerable we are to deadly viruses, bacteria, and fungus. These diseases are all caused by infectious pathogens that often get the upper hand on conventional medical treatments. Now more than ever, there's a great need for a product that will help protect us. Look no further. Supernatural Silver can provide immune system support to help fight off these deadly pathogens. Supernatural Silver is a new and vastly improved type of silver solution that's safe and extremely effective against 143 types of bacteria, both forms of viruses, mold, and yeast. Supernatural Silver can be taken orally or used topically and can be used in a nebulizer or vaporizer for inhalation. With over 180 scientific studies by independent universities, hospitals, and research institutions, Supernatural Silver is a powerful weapon against disease. Go to supernaturalsilver.com and use the promo code SILVER2014 for 20% off your entire order. Give you and your loved ones a fighting chance with Supernatural Silver.
Americans are reeling from Obamacare, higher prices, and an epidemic of policy lapses. AsiaRunLikeHellGuide.com has you covered. World-class medical and surgery at one of Asia's most modern hospitals. 300 doctors, surgeons, and dentists serving 300,000 patients a year. Fractions of U.S. prices. Friends or family forced to go out of pocket? Avoid bankruptcy. Tell them to run. Run like hell. Hit us up now. We'll show you how. AsiaRunLikeHellGuide.com.
Dr. Joel Wallach, author of the famous health lecture, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, presents his newest book, Epigenetics. Epigenetics is required reading for the very survival of Americans, and yes, all of humanity. Modern man has bet on the wrong horse to save them from disease and pestilence. The medical system has failed us fearfully. Join the health revolution. Buy Epigenetics today and receive a free membership to purchase all the products that Dr. Joel Wallach formulated at wholesale prices, and receive a free CD of Dead Doctors Don't Lie. All this for only $25 plus shipping and handling. Call 888-311-4311. That's 888-311-4311. Again, that's just $25 plus shipping and handling. And you'll receive the new book, Epigenetics, a free membership, and a free CD of Dead Doctors Don't Lie. Call 888-311-4311. That's 888-311-4311.
Hi, my name is David Merlin from TakeFromCaesar.us. Income is defined in the tax code. All property is a cost, including labor, according to statute. You're deprived of the provisions of Section 83 whenever you pay an income tax on your compensation. According to Section 83, only the excess over the amount paid is gross income. The government can't so much as provide an interpretation of Section 83 of its own. Get your paradigm shift and understanding today at TakeFromCaesar.us.
Get the hardest-hitting rebel newspaper of them all by mail anywhere in the CSA or U.S. For the next 12 issues, send $25 cash, check, or money order to TFF, P.O. Box 385, Silver Hill, Alabama 36576.
Herbal Healer Academy presents its spring specials. All sizes of our 500 parts per million colloidal silver are on sale, along with products to help you lose weight, like apple cider vinegar, Hoodia, Metabolic Complex, and Pro Metabolic. That's not all. Anti-parasite intestinal freedom, Wormwood Plus Complex, Stevia liquid sweetener, and the super enzymes are on sale. Visit herbalhealer.com to order yours. Request our free 128-page catalog. Healing the world with nature, one person at a time. herbalhealer.com.
Some say life will beat you down and break your heart, steal your crown.
We are back talking with Gerald Celente. TrendsResearch.com is the website. TrendsJournal is the publication. And you've been doing that for how many years?
Since 1980. And TrendsJournal since 1991. I want to read you something from Trends 2000.
Yes, sir.
And you're going to be shocked. We're talking about immigration. Migration threat to global stability. Migration is a greater threat to global stability than has been recognized. The sheer press of numbers of the very poor, made aware by radio and television of living conditions a boat ride away, is likely to become a steadily more destructive political force for Western democracies. Now remember, I wrote this in 1994 or 95. And this is from the Council on Foreign Relations. They even saw it. And here's what I wrote after I talked about it a bit. Illegal immigration was costing the chiefly affected states, remember this is 1995, 94, 96, right in that area, New York, Florida, Texas, Illinois, and California, an estimated $8 billion a year in service money spent on illegal immigrants. And it was money not spent on needy citizens. It goes on to say here that a University of California study shows that roughly 1/5 of the growth in the wage gap between the skilled and the unskilled since the mid-1970s was linked to the growing supply of unskilled immigration labor. Data from the 1990 Census Bureau already showed that the poverty rate of post-1970 immigrants was 42% higher than those of native-born Americans.
Give us you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry, and they're doing it.
It's a different time. The nation was building.
That's right.
And now the nation's in decline. So it's insanity. And again, they're both doing it, the Republicans and the Democrats, to get votes. And it didn't work this time, by the way. It didn't turn out. I mean, Obama's been such a failure that even, they didn't want to vote for him, for the Democrats.
Well, in order to push the agenda forward, he had to be a failure. Because if we look at what the man's been proposing, we've had 13 years of war in the Middle East. We're back in Iraq. The cover stories that the CIA put out about Syria, Assad using chemical gases against his own people, that was pretty reminiscent of the excuse that they used to go after Saddam Hussein with his weapons of mass destruction, which we gave him to go to war with Iraq. And once he figured out that he was being set up, he got rid of them. But that didn't stop us from going to war. Gerald, we have 7 countries that must be toppled and rebuilt in the Middle East. And we're on just about the last one here. And
now this is dangerous. It's very dangerous. They're out of their league, just like they were with World War I. We began talking about making the world safe for democracy. By the way, to me, 6 words destroyed are evident in the destruction of the United States: Harvard, Princeton, Yale, bullets, bombs, and banks. And when you go back to again making the world safe for democracy, it was that Princeton guy. That was Woodrow Wilson, the president of Princeton. And he's the one that took us to war. A war that was about to end. A war that was totally needlessly fought. Every historian knows it. A war that destroyed Europe just as it was beginning to magnificently develop. A war that cut up the Middle East as the Ottoman Empire broke up, to create the Iraqs that never existed, to create the Syrias, the Lebanons, and the Jordans that never existed. The colonial powers, the French and the English, Sykes-Picot. You look at the lines. I mean, hey John, hand me that T-square and a ruler. I want to make up a country. And they created the disaster that exists today.
Yeah.
And that Woodrow Wilson should rot in hell. Say also the man that gave us the Federal Reserve System.
I was just going to say.
That stole the money from the people and gave it to the banks.
He also did 2 other things. the very same architects for the Emergency Banking Act that gave us the Federal Reserve, which is just a private corporation making their widgets. This widget just happens to be U.S. dollars. Also the income tax, and also the 17th Amendment, which we turned the Senate into a political body that people could vote their choice, where they used to be ambassadors, Gerald, and these two ambassadors from each state were sent to Washington, D.C. as if it were a foreign territory, and if they weren't doing the bidding of the state, the way the state thought that they should be doing their job in D.C., they were recalled. That man, aside from making the world safe for democracy, that man planted the bomb that blew this country wide open.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Again, a Princeton guy. And look, I know these guys. I know these Harvard, Princeton, Yale people. They have a real bad attitude, man. These people born on third base and thought they hit a triple, they think they know better than everybody. And they're all little boys and girls, not a man or woman among them. All they have is a long line of crap, and they don't have the cojones the size of a moth. And they're the ones that send others to go do their fighting, their killing, and die for their craziness. These are the ones that steal our money in the names of too big to fail. And as you pointed out, the slimy man that brought us the federal income tax. I forgot all about that.
Well, and he, of course, had his alter ego that was right from Austin, Texas as well. And many said that he was the real power behind the throne in Woodrow Wilson's administration. And I knew I was going to do this. I was going to arrive at the point I was going to say the man's name, and I just forgot it. At any rate. Yeah, there have been many things that have been planted in this country that years ago that are just now yielding fruit, and it is a poison fruit. And people, you know, I'm listening to the political janglings out there. Well, the Republicans are going to give us jobs. What are they going to do about jobs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we create our own environment. We create our own economy by way of demand. Get out of our way, give us an honest currency. We know how to work, we know how to roll up our sleeves, and we know how to create wealth, and we know how to create a standard of living. You are the ones that have stolen it from us. Hey, we only have about a minute. Coming out of the G20, we discovered that there was a lot of conversation, Gerald, about possibly the banks might need working capital, and the plans are in the works to maybe confiscate, or maybe too strong of a term, appropriate 401s and retirement funds out there, and they'll be issued government bonds. Don't worry, they're solid, 100%. But I see it in the wind, what happened in Cyprus, what Canada talked about doing 2 days later, what was discussed in this country a week after that. It's now in the planning stages for that to happen inside the United States. You people that are in the retirement, we've been warning you, you're in your retirement funds. When the stuff hits the proverbial air-moving device, ladies and gentlemen, the government's going to grab everything it can lay its hands on, including your retirement funds.
And when you think about the G20 and Vladimir Putin, Russia's buying up gold like there's no tomorrow. That's one of the reasons why gold prices are going up. And, you know, the Russians are no fools, and anybody that thinks they're going to defeat them, I mean, yeah, if Napoleon couldn't pull it off, and Hitler launched the greatest military offensive in world history and couldn't do it, oh yeah, Obama, Cameron, and Hollande, and that little boy Abbott over there in Australia, oh, they'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I suggest that everyone that wants to see where the economy's going, keep your eye on oil prices. I mean, Brent crude peaked at $115 this year. In June, it's down to $78 now. There's a recession officially in Japan. There's one, the Chinese real estate bubble has burst. There's the recession going on that's never ended in Europe, and the same one going on here. So more cheap dough coming in, and more schemes undreamed of, like you're talking about, on the horizon.
Gerald Celente, TrendsResearch.com, TrendsJournal. Arrivederci, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for all the. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for all the. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for all the. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for all the. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for all the. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for all the. Thank you so much for having me on.